dry, warm Grecian islands, because Assassin's Creed Valhalla is all about the chills and thrills of medieval England and the Viking way of life. Assassin's Creed Valhalla puts you in the Animus to see through the eyes of Eivor, a Viking of the Raven clan who makes their way to England with their clan to start afresh and a dripping in blood. Valhalla has some significant differences from Odyssey, so if you're expecting the same RPG experience, you're in for a shock. Trust me, that's no bad thing. While you might miss dialogue options and significant narrative choices, there's plenty that makes Assassin's Creed Valhalla an assassin experience worth sticking your blades into. So, here's our Assassin's Creed Valhalla review. Ubisoft Montreal is taking the lead with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, who first introduced RPG concepts to the series with Origins, and they've come a long way since the rolling sands and deserts of Bayeux, Egypt. Vast dunes have been replaced by England's scenery, its rolling hills and boggy fenland, oak trees sprawling over woodland in between twisting rivers that snake through the entire kingdom. Or kingdoms. England is ruled by multiple monarchs, so as Eivor, you've got to find allies in the kingdoms of Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, and East Anglia. Before you get to England, however, you've got to survive through your childhood and teenage years in Norway, which is handily skipped after you lose family to a raid in the first 5 minutes of the game. You can't be an assassin without some trauma, after all. Good news is that the Norway prologue doesn't outstay its welcome, teaching you the basics of being a Viking and an assassin, and allowing you to choose the gender of your Eivor. Quick aside, Valhalla clearly states that Cassandra is the canon protagonist of Odyssey. In the future, I hope to see a female assassin being at the front and centre of an Assassin's Creed title, in both the game and the marketing, but until then, it's good to see Cassandra taking her place as the canonical ancient Greek assassin. Switching back to our Viking assassin, when it comes to Eivor, they have some cracking lines. He's a seed stain on his father's trousers. I shall wipe him from this world was a personal favourite. They're stoic, yet witty and smart, with colourful metaphors and the ability to tell others to shut the hell up and follow their orders, which I am very much a fan of. Even with an attitude like that, keeping things stable at your new home in England is one hell of a job, as there's buildings to erect, allies to meet, and towns to raid. But you couldn't ask for a more beautiful place to call home. England flows incredibly well with a range of landscapes underneath your keel, hooves, or feet, no matter where you turn. Roman ruins, caves, every surface covered in moss and vines, bogs, rivers, hills, all of which are saturated in colour. Verdant England has plenty of variation for you. You really can get to most of the map by boat too, and I didn't use my horse that much because of it. I found that I never really got sick of travelling by horse or by boat to my next missions because the surroundings were so enthralling. England isn't the only place you're going to be visiting, but I don't want to say too much about the other destinations in store for Eivor, as they're very spoilery. But let's just say that the trip from Norway to England isn't the last time you'll be crossing a wide ocean, and some locations must be seen to be believed. Okay, before I really do spoil something, it's time to talk about how Valhalla is not a Viking version of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's simply not. There are a handful of dialogue choices, but they don't really make a difference, and there's no narrative choices that seriously matter to the story. Valhalla is a far more linear game, and that's no bad thing. In contrast to the overwhelming size of Odyssey, seriously, do you remember how big that map was? Valhalla has a clear path that it sets you on. It's clear there's a lot of love for older Assassin's Creed games in Valhalla. By narrowing down its scope, you end up with dozens of hours of fulfilling exploration, discovery, and encounters, without it being a dread-inducingly massive undertaking. Elements like Eivor's hooded disguise, raiding, Sunin's tweaked scouting, And actual investigation quests where you're tracking ghostly evidence make Valhalla a delight for fans of older Assassin's games while introducing enough fresh mechanics to keep new players intrigued. As for side quests, they're still plentiful enough to be able to distract you from the main quest, but, and this is a big one, they're pretty basic. I wish they were fleshed out more, as they feel very one and done. And although, yeah, it does lean into you being a Viking and therefore not knowing England well, it would have been nice to make them more substantial, as a chunk of the side quests that are there are inventive, funny, and unexpected. Each section of the main quest, however, is like its own TV episode with a new supporting cast for each major arc, while still tied to a strong overall narrative that you can tell the game is working towards. Main quests also thrive with additions that just make you feel more involved in the quest itself, like your raven Sunin not telling you exactly where to go, which I'll come back to in a second. So, when I was asked to hunt someone down, the locations mentioned in the intel I gathered from speaking to people were marked on my map with a big black cross, instead of being added to my mission objectives with their own waypoint. These crosses are a hint to explore that location, to see if anything of use is nearby, but this subtlety in how you're pointed there makes a world of difference. One thing that might trip you up if you have sunk dozens of hours into Odyssey is that your raven, Sunin, no longer pinpoints your objectives on the map. This time around, you get given a broad area to search for your objective. Frustrating at first, sure, but in the long run, it encourages exploration and using your brain to track down your aim. Looking to talk to a leader of an army? They're probably not kicking it by the fire with everyone else. Look for someone in fancier gear brooding somewhere. Contextual clues, folks. That's the way to go. Like getting intel for your main quests, making Sunin's scouting abilities less OP means your feathered friend feels more complementary to your own skills. You work together to find your objectives, with Sunin helpfully narrowing down the area but leaving it up to you to seek out your target. Consequently, Eivor and Sunin's relationship feels more symbiotic than Cassandra and Icaros's, as Icaros's ability to find the exact target was a smidgen too powerful. With Sunin and Eivor, it's only by working together that you succeed. Re-evaluating the mechanics from previous Assassin's Creed games like this, and fine-tuning them, makes Valhalla feel more balanced, more reliant on your own tenacity and less reliant on markers, objectives, and constant pointers on the horizon telling you where to go. Eivor's, and therefore your, stubbornness to explore is the focus. So yes, search that intel-marked area thoroughly. Pore over the area Sunin highlighted on the map. Infiltrate a town with your cloak and hood instead of your axe. All of those would be easier if you were spoon-fed where to go and what to do, but relying on your own scrolls on the map or your ability to pick out someone important from a crowd makes you feel like much more of an assassin. English cities like London and Jorvik, change the game's feeling up considerably and encourage you to spend several hours at a time in a dense, rooftop-laden areas well away from your Viking crew and longboat. These cities are still relatively small when compared to the floor space of, say, Syndicate's London, which covered its entire map, but ably afford hours of gameplay as you work through their individual arcs. Fans of older Assassin's Creed games will feel completely at home here in terms of the gameplay on offer. Investigation-style side quests, treasure hunts, and even the series' first tailing mission in what feels like years. And at the end of your time in London, you can head out back into the countryside and feel like you're playing a different game all over again. Travelling around does take its toll though, so it's a warm relief to be able to return to your settlement of Ravensthorpe. Ravensthorpe is the heart of Valhalla, not just because it's where you keep coming back to, but also because it's where you genuinely feel at home. Sailing around on the Adrestia in Odyssey was freeing, but even after the customization, it's a far cry from having a permanent place to call home, especially one which grows as Eivor gets more familiar with England. Expanding it bit by bit is reminiscent of Ezio's Monteriggioni villa from Assassin's Creed 2, as Ravensthorpe is where you see your hard work finding resources and forging alliances come to fruition. Spending time there and seeing it blossom makes Eivor's time in England feel less transient. and certainly made me feel more invested in the success of the Raven clan. It's hard not to when most of the rewards from your raids are poured back into Ravensthorpe's buildings, decorations, and upgrades. So, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Blending features that are reminiscent of older Assassin's Creed games with toned-down RPG mechanics, Valhalla's streamlined, largely linear open world is a reinterpretation of the traditional Assassin's Creed game. By and large, it succeeds in making you feel like you're an assassin without compromising your Viking creed, through features like the careful balance of episode-like main quests, and mechanics that make you rely on your own tenacity more than waypoints on the horizon. Valhalla isn't a small undertaking by any means. It'll still take you dozens of hours to complete it, but it feels less bloated than Odyssey, more refined in its aims and overall structure. Whether you're a fan of Odyssey or of older Assassin's Creed games, there's something for everyone in Valhalla, so have at it. And that's our Assassin's Creed Valhalla review. If you enjoyed the video, thanks very much, and also don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Eurogamer for more videos about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because I am going to be playing a lot of it. Plus, we have a new video out every single day, so there's always something to watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, there's a town I need to go raid, so I'll see you next time.